So my name is Sandra Rogers, and in December 2016, my husband David was diagnosed with a small cancerous tumour on his tongue. And he had surgery for that in February 2018, where he had part of his tongue removed. And the statistics were looking pretty good that he would make a good recovery. But later in that year, he was diagnosed with a reoccurrence of a much bigger tumour in the floor of his mouth at the end of 2017. And then he had chemoradiotherapy for that in 2018, and he had 7 weeks of radiotherapy with chemotherapy. It was a shock. It was a huge shock for us when he was diagnosed with the reoccurrence. I suppose we had become used to using the word cancer in our household, but we had coped with it quite well, the first time, and his outlook was quite good. But when he had the reoccurrence, that really hit us really hard. And I suppose it's fair to say we didn't have a lot of time to really think things through at that time, to process things, because very quickly we found ourselves sitting in the cancer centre in the city hospital, to have his regime for treatment drawn up. So I think looking back, there often isn't a lot of time to process what's actually happening at the time. You're trying to tend to all the practical issues, look after family at home and attend appointments and travel, as well as take in all of this information together with the uncertainty, the uncertainty of the progress of the cancer, and the uncertainty of what the treatment is going to be like, and how we're going to keep life just ticking over. So it's a huge adjustment. It's a huge adjustment to new words in your life. A new disease that you're living with as a family, and then the adjustment to the cancer and the suffering, I suppose, and the distress of the person that you love. Watching David going through that, it was really, really hard to watch. At that time, I think communication is a really big issue. And I think it can sometimes be easier to talk to friends or other people who've been through the same thing. We had 2 families who were very good to us, who had been through a very similar journey. And sometimes it's easier to talk to them than to talk to family, because we certainly in our family, we had a tendency to try and protect each other, while we were talking, and almost to minimize, the way you would on your computer, you minimize the picture right down into the corner. And for both of us, watching our children's response to the news was really, really difficult. We have 3 children, and for them, Dad had always been a big, strong figure, in their lives. And to deliver the news was really difficult. One of our children was overseas at the time on a long-awaited holiday, and we had to tell him while he was away, and the other 2 were here. But delivering that news when you're just coming to terms with it yourself was hard, because as parents we have a tendency to try and make things okay for our kids, and we couldn't make this okay, and all we could do was say, we'll go through this together, we'll support each other. But I do think there's a tendency to hold back, and at times the children would say, we want you to tell us every appointment that you're going to, everything that is happening, because if we think you're holding things back, then we worry, and we think that you're not telling us something is wrong. So we gave them that promise that we would tell them everything. Our youngest didn't want to know as much, but the older 2 wanted to really be kept informed of everything. And I think every family is different, and every person within the family is different in in what they want to know and what they don't want to know. So it's very much a personal issue, and each family's experience is different. But that was ours. Um, Eating and drinking during the course of David's radiotherapy, he lost his swallow, and he lost it very early on in his treatment. His treatment was very severe. He was hospitalized after a week and a half. So he was in hospital for 5.5 weeks of his treatment because it was just so hard on him. And he had a rag inserted after he lost his swallow for his nutrition. So when he was discharged from hospital after his radiotherapy, he still had the rag in situ, so he was still being fed by liquid feed straight. The rag is a tube that goes straight into your tummy here. It's just inserted with a needle straight into the stomach, so he was fed liquid food into his tummy because he had no swallow. So that was probably, from a physical point of view, the biggest adjustment that we had to make when he came home. He very much liked looking after that himself. I didn't have a lot to do with that other than support him in what he needed help with. But the adjustment to not eating, I think you realize what a social activity eating is, because as he became stronger after his radiotherapy, and he did, week by week he became stronger, and week by week he was able to do more. Then we began to be able to go out, and the speech and language department were so helpful in giving us advice to how to adjust to that. So what we used to do was go and meet friends for a cup of coffee, and he would bring some digestive biscuits in a little plastic box, and he'd be able to get his cup of tea or coffee and dip a digestive in, and eat this sloppy biscuit when it was dunked. But I think you slowly make adjustments like that without really realizing that you're making them. I think adjusting slowly is really important. Taking all the help and information that you can get, using the resources that are out there. And we had 2 really helpful books in terms of helping him to get back onto a diet, as his swallow got stronger. There's the Eating Well book by Aoife Ryan, and the Caris Cancer Care book on, how to prepare food after you've lost your swallow or had surgery to your mouth or your neck. And those 2 books were really helpful to us, because we felt like we were at sea and really didn't know how to deal with this. So I suppose we started off with those meals, and gradually he was able to chew and swallow, and we were able to get out more. I think you feel very helpless looking on. David would say, he just went through it, but he felt at times it was harder for family to watch the adjustment. And I think you can feel very helpless, in not being, you certainly can't fix it or make it better. All that we can do is go through it together and just take it one step at a time, and make adjustments slowly. But certainly getting out and doing things was really important, and speaking up in restaurants was really, really important. When it came to the time that we were able to go out, and phoning up and saying, and we still do this to this day, my husband has had radio cancer treatment to his mouth, and he's not able to eat whatever, and now we would phone up and say he cannot take pepper or chili, or anything really spicy. And speaking up, and restaurants are generally really responsive and really helpful, and that didn't come easy. We had to get used to that, but we still do that to this day, and that does really help. After his surgery, yeah, he lost a considerable portion of his tongue, and it was very painful. But no, I would say we didn't have significant difficulties with communication. No. I was very much guided by what was helpful for him, because I think that everybody pitches that at a different level. Some people like to do things themselves and get great comfort out of that. And that's so good for your sense of competence, especially when you're in recovery, to be able to do things for yourself and show yourself that you can do it. But it's a gradual process, and there's a gradual withdrawal of help. So I would say, stand back and allow people to do what they can do for themselves, because that's so important to something. As helpers, we often want to step in and rescue because it makes us feel like we're doing something. So I very much pitched it in what was okay for him and what was helpful for him, and kind of kept the focus on him and his needs. While I had needs at the same time to help, I could see, no, it helps him to be able to do it himself. Support from friends and those two families who had been through the same journey, as well as the kids. We very much supported each other, and we're part of a church community, and the number of people that called at the door with meals and cakes and shopping was really quite unbelievable. I visited David for 5.5 weeks in hospital and went in every day, and we didn't have to cook once in those 5.5 weeks. So our support came from friends and family, and it was really quite touching. Yeah, it was so touching to be on the receiving end of that. So take all the help that you can get, I would say. It was so appreciated. As David became stronger, I think you put your own needs on hold very much when the person that you love is in recovery. But as he became stronger and started to do more and get back to the activities of daily living, I said one day, okay, when he's better, I'm going to go down to the Mourns for a weekend. I'm going to stay in bed and breakfast, and I'm not going to be a carer or the relative of someone who's unwell. I'm going to just walk in the Mourns all day. And actually what I ended up doing was joining a hill walking group, and I started to walk every Friday. And as he became stronger, it was okay to do that. And I just left everything behind every Friday and went and walked in the snow and the rain and the wind and the sun. And I did that for 2 years, almost non-stop. And that was a really important part of my recovery. In terms of the information that we were given by the healthcare professionals, it was excellent. And I think it's important to remember they're given so much information to everybody every day. Go in with your questions, and if you have a question, don't hold back. We found them so helpful, more than helpful. The services were amazing, but everybody's questions are different, and sometimes you can't take it all in. So take some notes, write it down. We did that, and then we would go for coffee afterwards and talk about it. So don't be afraid to take a notebook, put notes in your phone or write it down, and don't hold back if you have a question, because the questions in everybody's head, I think, are different. Yeah. Yeah, well, I said, I think as a carer, we can put our own needs on hold in supporting the other person. I think we can also put our own emotions kind of on freeze, the way you do with a video, because there just isn't time or energy to process it all at the time. So afterwards we went to Caris Cancer Care while David was in recovery. But I would say I was in recovery too. I'd say while we were both in recovery, we went to Caris Cancer Care, where we had aromatherapy and massage. They also offer counselling, which we both took. And that was really wonderful to have a space to be able to talk to someone who could hold everything. And I didn't need to protect her in any way. You know, she was so used to our experiences and hearing about similar experiences. I knew that I could just say anything to her, and I did. And as an organisation, they were so supportive, and the counselling was a lovely thing alongside the aromatherapy and the massage. And there was always a cup of tea and meeting other people as well who'd been through the same experience. So that was very helpful in terms of what I had put on hold. Afterwards, I was able to, I suppose, put words to the experience afterwards that I often didn't have time while I was going through it. Yeah, the word uncertainty is just everywhere. Once the word cancer comes into your life and into your family, and it's a big adjustment. And I actually went to the dentist one day after David was diagnosed with this reoccurrence, and she had been involved in the diagnosis. And I said to her, David has had a reoccurrence, and I burst into tears because you know, the way emotion can just come out sometimes in a place where you're not expecting it. We think we're in control of our emotions, but I just burst into tears. And after I was seen by her, I went for a walk, and I had to really kind of say, you know, I've been married for 25 years. I've learned to rely on David for so much, and he relies on me for so much, and you work hard at your relationship. But now, now with all this uncertainty, who am I apart from him? You know, so how do we stay connected to each other? How do I support him, not draw back to support myself? But who am I in this marriage as an individual? So yeah, that was really part of my reflection and part of my journey during the course of his treatment and afterwards. And it's that kind of contradiction between being reliant on someone but being your own person at the same time. Because uncertainty is it's there for all of us, but it's really highlighted when you're on a cancer journey. But it definitely changed when David was unwell. We've always had it, you know, we've always seen ourselves as being a couple with a good relationship. But I guess you just appreciate each other so much more. He really appreciated me coming to visit, you know, every day in those 5.5 weeks. I appreciated him for the person that he is, and, you know, how he went through it so bravely, and how he totally committed to the treatment and just went through it day by day. And then as you're recovering, I think you appreciate what you have and appreciate each day, and maybe more aware of the uncertainty and fragility of life and the time that we do have together. Yeah, I've been thinking about this, and two things come to mind. One is some of us find it harder to ask for help than others. You know, some of us are not used to asking help and used to going it alone. And I would say really take all the help that you can get and really ask for help, because this is one time in our lives when we really need help. And that help, like I talked about all those mails that came to our door, my goodness, the energy that you expend in just supporting someone with serious illness is significant. And so ask for help whenever you need it. And the other thing is, be kind to yourself. You know, don't expect too much of yourself. There'll be lots of things that that we have to put on hold and say, I can't do that. Can't do that today. That's just going to have to be the way it is. These are the priorities for now. We have to get through this. So be kind to yourself. Make allowances for yourself and the people around you. Those are the two things that I would say.